to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 6, Ignorance is Chris. And yes, we were all correct. It is Earth X. And it is not as fun being right if it means Leota is in a situation like this. I mean, Keith's saying one got out, and these folks all sprinting directly at her to do citizens arrests? Legitimately horrifying. Sorry this breakdown is coming out a day later than usual. James Gunn did not let any media see press screenings for this episode, and for good reason. What an insane twist. I mean, even seeing all the clues, it still made my jaw drop. So let's break down this episode scene by scene for all the details and DC Universe Easter eggs that you might have missed. And this Wednesday, October 1st, New Rockstars is officially unveiling our new horror channel, The Witching Hour, where every Wednesday you're gonna see a different video essay about a classic horror film. It's gonna be hosted by Jessica and Gina and me, and I really think you're gonna like it, so please subscribe. Okay, the episode opens in a victory feast at a restaurant with the top trio and Amelia Harcourt from this alternate Earth. The three of their armor looks like it's covered in the blood and guts of the kaiju that they would have killed the night before. I'm guessing one of them or all of them flew into it to blow it up from the inside, as that is how Mr. Terrific had to bring it down in Superman. This restaurant is, like everything in this dimension, filled with only white people. Even the kids who come up to take a selfie with the blue dragon are specified in the script to be blonde kids, and they're listed like that in the credits of this episode. On the wall above their booth is this framed sign reading, "All you need is love and a cabin," since we learned that one of the two greatest bands of this universe are the Beatles, spelled normally Beetles. I wonder if this variation on the adage is actually the title of their version of the Beatles song. Like maybe Paul and George were like, "All you need is love," and then Mick Jagger just kind of like did this coming in there and was like, "And a cabin." Amelia takes the group photo. It was also Amelia from the normal dimension who took the very important photo of the 11th Street kid in season 1 that Frank Sr. saw framed on her wall. But then all the faces melt and morph into these distortions, which tells us that just something is wrong in this dimension. Like the things that we've been seeing as normal, we are now really about to start seeing them as freakish, monstrous, evil, soulless, nightmare reality. Actually, in the After Show podcast, James Gunn and Jennifer Holland joked that these characters' faces melt moistily.
Going back to season 1, maybe their faces distorted moistly.
Moistly, yes, that's right, as the word of the day on the chalkboard in season 1.
Another detail about the Beatles of this alternate reality, if Mick Jagger is a lead singer instead of John Lennon, it makes the usage of Foxy's Shazam's "Oh Lord" a bit more interesting in the opening titles, because the opening lyric of that song is, "Julian, it's a hungry world, they're gonna eat you alive, son, yeah." And I explained before how these particular lyrics, being essentially words of advice or comfort to some boy named Julian, was probably Foxy's Shazam referencing "Hey Jude," which Paul McCartney wrote as a song to cheer up John Lennon's son named Julian. So in this reality, if John wasn't in the Beatles, there'd probably no "Hey Jude" in their discography. After Chris left behind his QUC suitcase in episode 5, rather than taking his advice to turn it in as leverage to restore their careers with Argus, the group has brought it to Adrian's house to reopen the portal, knowing that since Vigilante's identity is still unknown to Argus, they could be more discreet there. And here we meet Taylor St. Clair as Adrian's mother. She has been in the opening dance number of every episode this season, thrusting near where Judah Master does the backflips and the kyphotic alien does the running man. Mrs. Chase says Adrian hasn't brought any friends over since his D&D group broke up, and she's now joined the campaign to become a level 40 cut purse. Level 40? That's exceptionally high. Most average campaigns top characters out at level 20. So it means Adrian and his mom have spent like hundreds and hundreds of sessions together for her to be able to level up this high. Like a level 40 cut purse could probably pick the pocket of someone from another plane of existence. We find out what exactly Adrian's told his mom about the group.
And don't tell me this is hardcore?
Shut up, Mom!
Harcourt, not hardcore.
Oh, I thought it was hard.
You're not alone, but no.
According to James Gunn and Jennifer Holland in the After Show podcast, this is kind of a meta joke referencing how a lot of people who watch the show come up to Holland in public and think the character's name is Hardcore. In his basement room, he has millions of dollars in confiscated drugs and cash from the deals he has busted up. All of this makes it very funny that he still works as a busboy at a restaurant. Adrian doesn't want to spend blood money, but the other three, all of them dealing with economic woes, stuff that cash in their pockets. I love how Adrian's main basement room is filled with the millions of dollars of blood money and drugs, but his even more sacred inner closet is filled with what he considers even more valuable than all that stuff, Beanie Babies, the late 90s plushy beanbag collectible with various limited releases and various flaws that caused secondary market collectors to invest heavily in these, thinking that they'd be able to pay for their kids' college with it. My family was not a Beanie Baby family, but I was friends with many who were, and actually my wife's family kinda was. Actually, her hometown of Naperville, Illinois was where the Beanie Baby craze blew up because there was a particular group of Naperville moms, not her family, but some other moms, who collected and blogged about these things. And one of these moms wrote for People magazine, who interviewed the creepy creator Ty and wrote an article on this craze that artificially inflated their value. There's actually a really great You're Wrong About podcast episode that goes into all of this, including the company's very weird founder and how each of these things were themed and given random names and sometimes very creepy poems. Like the last Beanie Baby released is just called The End, and it's like an inky void of despair, or rather despair. They actually mentioned Stretch, the ostrich, and Adrian seems to have duplicates of many of them, but on the shelf to the left of Leota is Glory. That's the white bear with the navy blue and red stars to celebrate the 4th of July in 1997. Like the opening shots of the white stars on the blue field of the American flag that opened last episode, I'm choosing to see this as yet another reminder of what the American flag is supposed to look like to set up the big twist in this episode. Like, it's fitting that before they walk through this dimension, there was American stars right there. I love that you can also see a few owl Beanie Babies. This was Wise the owl from 1997 that wore little graduation caps, probably meant as gifts for kids graduating high school or college. I wonder if Adrian's seemingly recent obsession with owls mentioned earlier this season, and really all of his weird animal facts, come from just the Beanie Baby animals that he's been collecting. Leota sets up the QUC suitcase, showing that she paid enough attention watching Chris set it up in the cabin that she remembers how to do it now. But now, when the portal explodes open, it blasts all of them with cocaine. I love this gag. It actually reminds me of the ending of The Big Lebowski. If you know, you know. But it's also just so fun to rewatch these scenes and imagine that all these characters have at least a bit of a high throughout the episode, which probably doesn't do any favors for their paranoia as they discover the horrors of this other dimension. Economos asks Adrian why he didn't just flush his drugs down the toilet.
Because of the alligators in the sewer system, you callous piece of shit. What?
I'm going to see this as the first of two possible references to Killer Croc in this episode. The kyphotic alien returns to dump another feline creature in the furnace. Leota waves, and Economos snaps at her that none of them know what waving could mean to a creature in its own language. Indeed, Leota will wave to that racist woman in the neighborhood at the end of the episode, and it will be seen only as a threat. Economos calls the kyphotic alien a xenomorph, referencing the name given to the species in the Alien franchise. John also speculates that waving could mean, I think your favorite son should die, which is what Augie went through with Keith and Chris in his home dimension. His favorite son, Keith, died. And we will see, maybe in the alternate dimension, Chris might have been the favorite son of that version of August, not Keith. Like, Augie is just kind of a walking, talking, wrong son dad. Leota finds the alternate rack of Peacemaker helmets, and the one we see furthest on the right as she walks up looks like a full mask helmet that maybe that version of Augie designed to resemble his Blue Dragon helmet. I shudder to think of all the uses that the top trio might have designed these helmets for. They enter into the alternate universe trophy room, and Leota finds the key to the city for Evergreen, Washington, and we see the town was founded in 1881, and its emblem shows mountains with what I assume are clouds, but I will say they also kind of look like flying saucers. There's the Evergreen Sentinel front page headline, the top trio does it again, and there's another newspaper closer to Leota in the frame where the headline reads, I think, Gnomes Go Home, top trio restores peace. If this does say gnomes, I think this is a reference to the interdimensional imps that Keith and Augie were laughing about in a past episode, but knowing what we now know about this society, I'm especially worried about the context of these people struggling to tolerate anything that looks different from them. Like, them telling gnomes to go home probably had a bit of bite to it. By just looking at the photos of Chris 2 with Milia 2 and all these bands with the alternate names, and maybe some of that sweet, sweet nose candy still on her collar, Harcourt knows that something is wrong here and begins to rant that Chris should have just trusted the universe to place him in the right dimension. But then Keith walks in.
Sorry, I just took a shit in there. It's, rancid.
I love how this is also kind of a diss to how Economos might be smelling. James Gunn said that much of their back and forth was improvised, with suggestion for ad-libs coming from him, including the detail that Keith and Chris's mother gave Chris that snow globe on her deathbed. Actually, Gunn might have been pulling from the deathbed gift of the mixtape that Meredith Quill gives Peter Quill in the opening of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and how important that was. The improv continues in an outtake that we see as the episode's post-credit scene.
We had a great connection, she and I.
She passed away when he was 2.
Right. Yeah, we talk to her sometimes.
In the afterlife?
Yes, she's a ghost. She, haunts.
Another thing you may see in the intercutting with Leota and Vigilante in the closet, at one point Vigilante is holding a white hat. This is from another outtake where Adrian would have been doing all this stupid shit in the closet, like trying on all of Chris 2's outfits, while Leota whispered at him to stop. Keith says,
You know, it's wild. I've never seen you wear black before.
No?
No. Or pants.
Pants? What, I'm always in my underwear?
I guess Harcourt cannot imagine wearing any kind of bottom wear that's anything other than pants. But the fact that Amelia 2 would never wear black is also maybe telling. Like, there could be a specific aversion to all forms of that color in this society. As Keith drives Harcourt to Argus, she looks out the window at all the people in this town and very quickly detects how odd it is that all these residents seem to be of a certain type. I find it pretty funny how fast Amelia notices it, while Chris was looking at all these same kind of people and was like,
best dimension ever.
They listened to Forever and On by Helloween. Helloween is a German power metal band founded in Hamburg in the 1980s, so for them to be one of the two most important rock bands of this universe tells us a lot about how dominant German culture has been, which is also probably why Keith and Augie phonetically added that German umlaut in their pronunciation of Bluthaven.
I thought you were in Bluthaven.
Meanwhile, the Beatles of it all, spelled B-E-E-T-L-E-S here, could also come from the fact that in our universe, the Beatles first became famous from their residency in that same city of Hamburg, Germany. And for these Beatles to consist of Mick, Paul, George, and Ringo, meaning the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger replaced John Lennon in this Beatles lineup, but they kept Ringo, which is so funny to me. That just might have been an issue regarding John Lennon's outspoken political views. It's kind of hard to know because the Beatles started with John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison all as teenagers in Liverpool in a band originally called the Quarrymen, whereas Mick Jagger and Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones were school buddies from Dartford. So it just kind of implies that some producer in the 1960s in a version of the UK dominated by Nazi Germany was kind of like, you three from Hamburg and you from this other band, you will replace John Lennon. As Amelia 2 showers, there is a moment where Chris, while shaving, disassociates after seeing his own face staring back at him from his variant, including his variant's dead stare. Probably anytime he sees his reflection now must be triggering, like all mirrors are ruined for him. In the Argus lobby, the security dog barks at Harcourt.
Eva, heel.
Oh boy, Eva, a German Shepherd? I mean, the only reason you would name a German Shepherd Eva would be as a reference to Eva Braun, the companion and wife to Adolf Hitler. It's kind of like that bit in Succession where the white supremacist conservative media news host named his dog Blondie, which was the name of Hitler's dog. Yeah, we know what you're doing here.
The weather is starting to change, and before I had Miracle Made sheets, that meant I'd have to trade out my summer sheets for some thicker fall fabric. But now I don't have to. I can sleep on the same sheets all year long. Miracle Made's fabric was inspired by NASA, so it's thermoregulating. That means you'll sleep at the perfect temperature all night long, and these sheets are crazy comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. Plus, Miracle Made sheets are infused with silver that prevents bacterial growth, and bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne, so sleeping on Miracle Made sheets is good for your skin too. Upgrade your sleep as the weather changes. Go to trymiracle.com/newrockstars to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use promo New Rockstars at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/newrockstars and use the code NEWROCKSTARS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/newrockstars to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring today's video.
Back at his alternate universe house, Vigilante cracks up at the minor differences, the squirrel statue instead of a chipmunk.
You're a chipmunk in my world.
Cheerios instead of Cheerios, and the fact that his dad in this universe is still with his mom and Adrian doesn't think he's gay.
My dad's not gay here.
But according to James Gunn, that dad might still be gay, but just closeted, which would make sense considering the Nazis would also target homosexuals. In the official After Show podcast, James Gunn teased that there was an earlier draft of this scene where Vigilante would have seen his mom making out with the alternate universe John Economos on the couch.
And it was the only time we ever see John Economos in Earth 2. And he goes, oh, my mom is John Economos here. And then he just walks on and goes downstairs.
Adrian meets his alternate self, and the two are overjoyed to meet each other and reference the Spider-Man pointing meme from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Hey! Oh, we Spider-Man meme! Hey!
Belle Reeve, we see the prisoner Rick Flag Sr. came to see. That low guitar theme is the Lex Luthor theme from the Superman film. I love this music. Lex walks in with a cane, suggesting that he's still recovering from Crypto, the superdog, thrashing him around in that command center at the end of the Superman film. Nicholas Hoult returns as Lex Luthor, and our man looks tough. He reminds General Flag that Flag denied metahumans were even a threat in Superman, and now metahumans seem to be taking over the world.
And the Justice Gang and Superman determining international politics.
I assume Lex is referring to the Justice Gang intervening in Baravia's attempted invasion of Jaranpur, specifically Hawkgirl taking the Baravian president Vasil Gurkos and dropping him to his death. Meanwhile, for Lex's current status,
Here in Belle Reve, listening to a bear-sized man with dragon skin, but f***ing a glowing twink with cartoon eyes in a cell beside me every night.
First off, pretty crazy to hear Lex Luthor use that kind of language, but it tracks. Most people believe the bear-sized man with dragon skin must be Killer Croc. I tend to agree with that theory, but it also gives Killer Croc quite the backstory from prison, and it would also mean that Killer Croc is not one of those escaped metahumans from either Arkham or Belle Reve that was mentioned on the Sphere show earlier this season. Meanwhile, the glowing twink with cartoon eyes, some say Dr. Phosphorus there. I don't know about that. He doesn't really have any eyes, let alone cartoon ones. And at the end of Creature Commandos, Dr. Phosphorus was down on the Task Force M floor, not on a floor that he would live in a neighboring cell with Lex Luthor next door. So instead of Dr. Phosphorus, I think it's just gonna be another DC character like maybe Jericho or Clarion the Witch Boy. There was also the Batman the Animated Series where Killer Croc was partnered with Baby Doll. I honestly am not enjoying theorizing on this, so maybe Lex is just hyperbolizing. But Lex refers to it as a metahuman blight and says that he was sentenced to 265 years in prison. Rick asks Lex if he heard of Peacemaker, and Lex indicates no, even though they were both guests on the Sphere with Clevis Thornweight. Rick tells Lex that his interest in catching Peacemaker is really about Peacemaker's portable QUC portal.
So if I had a scanner, say, that could pinpoint the location of that portal, that would be of use?
Yes, it would.
James Gunn acknowledged that Lex feels different in this scene in Peacemaker, even though they did shoot this while they were shooting Superman, specifically the Pentagon scene.
It was cool. It was weird because tonally, it instantly felt different from Superman, which is so big and brash, and then this show is like so, like strangely grounded and gritty. But I felt like even Nick's performance was different, and the dog.
It felt a little darker, yeah. It was a little different.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it just shows how good Nicholas Hoult is to play this character from different eras of his life, both when he was eagerly pitching his solution to the metahuman blight, and then after those efforts failed and humiliated him. In the After Show podcast, James Gunn said that they shot this prison scene in a room under an industrial air conditioning unit that made it extremely loud and very, very difficult to shoot in this room, and it just caused a lot of production problems for this scene. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room with Chris and Harcourt, James Gunn went on threads talking about how this scene made him very emotional because it's two characters just letting their feelings out in a very real way. And specifically, an amazing performance by Jennifer Holland here, because for Harcourt, it's not that Peacemaker killed her friend and lover Rick Flag Jr. that made her feel this way. It's really just she feels too much like a nightmare to allow herself to be loved by Chris. Also in the After Show podcast, James Gunn talked about how they took the extra time to block this scene in a unique way so that they'd be able to break the rule of 180. That refers to the invisible line when you're positioning the actors and the cameras that you really cannot cross with the cameras because it would screw up the eye lines of the actors and confuse the audience and just logically confuse the viewer as you're watching the scene. But you are allowed to break this rule very rarely if you do it clearly and intentionally motivated by the action of the scene, which James Gunn does here when the characters stand, making Harcourt go from the right side of the frame to the left, and he doesn't cut the camera during the transition. And then in really what's the third act of the scene, Gunn has them stand again so that he's able to reposition the camera to cross the line again and put Harcourt back on the right side of frame in order to punctuate this climactic revelation.
Do you have feelings about me or not?
So what? So you're gonna stay here if I don't and come home if I do?
See? You just keep talking around it.
Chris, I'm a fucking nightmare!
Actually, one of the most famous violations of the rule of 180 was Christopher Nolan in the interrogation scene in The Dark Knight, where he does this with Joker and Batman. Rick Sr. tells Sasha that he's going to transfer Lex Luthor to Van Kull. Van Kull is a maximum security prison in Metropolis from the DC Comics, first mentioned in the 2002 one-shot comic The Power Company Bork. Van Kull prison also came up in the CW Supergirl series as a prison in National City, but here in the DCU, it seems like it's going to be in Metropolis, meaning Lex Luthor is back in the city limits of Metropolis, something that we're going to have to keep our eye on as we're looking looking for clues for Man of Tomorrow, but I was hoping we could have gotten to see Lex interact with some of those Belle Reve residents instead of just hearing about it. Meanwhile, the two vigilantes laugh it up.
Here's one. What's the best Pokemon? Infernape. Yes!
Infernape is a Pokemon introduced in the Gen 4 games of Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver, the third stage of evolution after Chimchar and Monferno. It's a primate-like creature, a fire, and a fighting type, and he is pretty cool. They both acknowledge that human skin is their least favorite thing to touch, and their favorite thing about a platypus is a poisonous spike on the back of their ankles, and then of course this.
Are you able to pee if something's touching your butt? No way, and I look down upon people who can. Right?
This is a callback to season 1 when Vigilante pulled his pants all the way down when he peed outside. Then we get this reveal.
Is your best friend Peacemaker? Peacemaker? Yes. I fucking hate that guy. He's my fucking arch enemy. He is the reason I joined the Sons of Liberty in the first place. The what?
So confirmed! As we theorized in episode 3, the Sons of Liberty were actually the good guys of that scenario. They were just rebels trying to fight the fascist power structures of this society. And that's why James Gunn included so many of those empathetic shots of these rebels reacting to each other's deaths and mourning each other. So Leota goes out for a walk and then gets the nastiest look from this blonde woman. This woman, by the way, is driving a Porsche Macan. Porsche is a German car maker. Wouldn't surprise me if all the cars in this universe are Volkswagens, Audis, but also if you notice Keith's truck on the steering wheel, that's a Ford. And given how Henry Ford felt in the early years of World War II, that ain't that surprising. Do you think HBO brought this up when they asked Ford and Porsche to feature their cars and their brands in these episodes? I doubt it. Now, I am not bringing any of this up to criticize the current makeup of these companies. I'm just pointing out the early histories and how that history might have played out in Earth X. When Milia 2 arrives at Argus, it looks like Billy the front desk guy is scrolling through the same Owlfax website on his computer that we saw when Economos and Adrian were talking about owl trivia earlier this season. The woman in the Porsche runs to her husband to point to Leota, and then Keith slams on the brakes. But the way we intercut between Leota and the neighborhood back to Chris and Harcourt and Argus is just perfectly tense. So we go from Keith's Ford truck to this.
I haven't seen a single person of color ever since I've been here.
No way.
Chris is still in denial. So we go from that denial to his brother saying this.
What got out? I'm black!
To me, this is the most chilling line of the episode. One got out? Like, I hate to even speculate on what that means. Out from where? Prisons? Camps, some red line segregated zoned area with patrolled guards, something even worse like the pocket dimension prison where Lex Luthor kept his enemies. I mean, the fact that Augie of this universe has access to quantum unfolding chamber technology, God, what might he have helped the leaders of this awful universe do? To even theorize on what Keith thinks a black woman escaped from isn't exactly a fun type of theorization for me, to be honest, especially when Keith shouting this inspires all these other white folks to go weapons and sprint toward Leota to do what? A kind of citizen's arrest? Like, they're not running inside and hiding. They all feel entitled and pressured to handle this themselves as a mob, which is also really terrifying because it's the kind of empowered citizenry that fascist ideology has historically wanted. Like, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. And I really applaud James Gunn for his boldness in making this Elseworld part of his live action DCU. Like, it's one thing for Rick and Morty to do it with some Nazi shrimp in an animated show that's all about the multiverse, but really what this means is the first time James Gunn took the DCU into the multiverse, the first door opened to this, which to me is a pretty brilliant move to make us never want to go back into the multiverse in the DCU. So, validating the clue that I spotted back in episode 3, the rolled up American flags on the Argus desks do indeed bear Nazi insignia. This is how the American flag was reconceived in The Man in the High Castle, and yes, this is all based on Earth X from the DC Comics in 1973, a hypothetical reality where Germany had won World War II. Now I'm curious to know what backstory in the 1930s and 1940s with whatever golden age heroes of that dimension that James Gunn is gonna blame for America losing World War II. So we get this shot of Leota running down the street toward camera, starting with just her alone appearing up on the horizon, followed by a whole mob. It's similar to the shot of Indiana Jones running from the tribe in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or I guess you could say similar to Jack Sparrow's run in Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Dead Man's Chest. But more appropriately for this instance, it does kind of remind us of Chris's run from those white supremacists at the end of season 1, or the shot of Childish Gambino fleeing for his life in the iconic This Is America music video. I just feel so bad for Leota. Like, normally these episodes end with a humorous uh-oh cliffhanger, but this is not funny. This is a straight up horror movie. Seriously, we need to get G.I. Robot in here, stat. So let's look ahead to next week's episode, episode 7, titled Like a Keith in the Night. Here's the promo.
Yeah, we got problems. What? It's your brother, Keith. Something's not right about him.
That the guy?
Luthor says that's the guy.
What's my reason for helping you? Why'd you come back here?
Freeze everyone now!
Get back, you kids!
So who is this mystery prisoner? Well, if you look at the wide shot, this seems to be Lex's assistant, Sidney Saperson, played by Stevie Blakehart. More importantly, this seems to be happening in Lex's floating command center from the Superman film. It looks like the whole flying structure is being kept within this government storage. So the QUC scanner that Lex referred to must be somewhere among that computer equipment. Comment down below with your thoughts, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Paulo Bianca, for supporting us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss. Subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.